As July draws closer, the focus of the pro peloton shifts to the Tour de France, and with that shift comes the final tune-up race for many of the top Tour contenders, the Dauphiné Libere. A stacked field of Americans lead the charge into this week's long race, including George Hincapie, who's back on his bike for the first time since crashing out of Paris-Roubaix. And also there's Floyd Landis, who dominated the first half of the season. And Levi Leipheimer sits poised to break out of his shell after maintaining a low profile all spring. Who is ready to challenge at next month's Tour? The final test awaits as Cyclism Sundays brings you the 58th edition of the Dauphiné Libere next on OLN. Yes, it's a beautiful day in France. We're only just over the border zone from nearby Switzerland. The Dauphiné Libere, by tradition, the big warm-up race now for the Tour de France, more than 1,000 kilometres. I'm Phil Liggett, and alongside me is Paul Sherwen. But drugs are still leading the way in the headlines this week. Good news for Lance Armstrong. A leaked report from Holland appears to have vindicated him over alleged EPO use in the 1999 Tour de France. But Operation Puerto is still raising its head. Indeed, Phonak have now suspended temporarily two of their riders, at least they're not entering them in races, and I'm talking about Santiago Botero, who was second in the Dauphiné race last year, and Jose Enrique Gutierrez, who was second in the recent Giro d'Italia. They've now got to sit it out because they've been implicated with the infamous Dr. Fuentes in Spain. He's under drug investigation. Manolo Sanz is said to have been buying drugs, allegedly so, off Fuentes. Well, he's lost his Liberty Seguros team, but he's now got a new team. Astana, which is the capital of Kazakhstan, seems to have joined forces with Wurt. So we now have a new team in the race, but will it get to ride the Tour de France? No decision on that. But Paul, we're here to talk about the Dauphiné Libere race. This is a super race. Did you ever ride it, by the way?
I rode it on a number of occasions. I tell you what, this is probably one of the most difficult ones I have seen in the last number of years. It starts right down by the Swiss borders in the beautiful little town of Annecy with that 4.1 kilometre individual time trial. But then it goes out onto the open roads, and only, I believe, for the first two stages do the sprinters really have a chance, because once they reach Saint-Galmier and head right the way down to the individual time trial at Bourg de Péage, it starts to get a little bit nasty with a mountain-top finish at the summit of the Mont Ventoux. Then it's into the big alpine passes of the Tour de France. The Côte d'Ivoire, a lot of riders will be interested in the La Toussuire climb because that's the first time included in the Tour de France this year, and then it'll finish next weekend in Grenoble. But I tell you one thing, Phil, it is a very long and difficult race because the distance between Annecy and Grenoble, the finish is 1,098 kilometres or 682 miles, and that's roughly the distance between Minneapolis and Kansas City. 21 teams, 168 riders, and a number of riders in history have won this race on 3 occasions. Most recently Charlie Motte and, of course, the great Frenchman Bernard Hinault.
Well, indeed, and the top American riders have chosen this race for their tune-up. Let's begin with George Hincapie, first race back. He won the prologue of this race last year and the last stage. Now the question is, what are his legs like? Because nobody knows. It's the first race since that tragedy in Paris-Roubaix, which robbed him of a high finish there.
Well, Floyd Landis has bet everything on this season. He's had a great start to the year with magnificent wins in the Tour of California, backed up by Paris-Nice, but now he has to come out and show us whether or not his time trialling ability is on form and whether he can climb up to the Tour de France.
Well, what about Levi Leipheimer, Paul? Here he is, and he's looking very, very strong.
Well, Leipheimer's had a quiet start to the year again. He started in the Tour of California like most of the American stars, but now he has to come out and play his cards. Normally, in the past, he's always ridden very well at the Dauphiné. We'll be following his performances with a great deal of interest.
He really can climb when it matters. And the other men we're talking about too, Alexander Vinokourov, Paul, there's a rider now. Is he in the race or is he not because of Liberty Seguros?
Psychologically, that's got to be very difficult for a bike rider. You're not sure what's going to happen, but Alexander Vinokourov is a seasoned professional and he has prepared himself, Phil, specifically for the Tour.
So Vinokurov then, he's a former winner of this race back in 1999, but he doesn't know, of course, whether his team will yet be thrown out of the Tour de France because of Operation Puerto and the involvement of its manager here, Manolo Saiz. It's a story which is going to run all the way up to the Tour de France, I'm sure about that. But of the other riders, there are other big Americans here. Riding for the first time is David Zabriskie. We all know what he did in the early days of the Tour de France last year, winning the Prologue there, and we'll see him in action here today. And there's also Chris Horner, but Zabriskie is one man I think we can expect to see some fireworks from. Zabriskie is now 27 years of age. He's had no wins this year. He did lead the Coppi Bartoli for a while, and he has finished second in the Tour of California, and we all know he can ride a time trial. This course might suit him. What about Horner?
Well, Horner's had a great season, and he actually is going to be the leader of his team here at the Dauphiné Libéré. He's had one win so far this season. It was a great win in the Tour of Romandie. He actually held the overall lead in that race for a while, and I think he too now will be laying the foundations for a good ride in the Tour de France.
All right, well, let's get to the route today, Paul. It's hardly a race for the climbers today. It is flat. It's going to be a pure thoroughbreds route. It's just over 4 kilometres, so it's got to be a fast man's race today.
Going to be very explosive. It's just a short individual time trial, a prologue just before the race really gets underway, and it's in, as I said, the heart of Annecy, which is a very picturesque little town just on the slopes of the mountains. The riders will leave the Alps behind them, but it's only, as you can see, a pan-flat 4.1 kilometre individual time trial. It's got to be an explosive effort. It might suit somebody like George Hincapie because he's coming back to competition. So Annecy to Annecy, 4.1 kilometres. That's 2.5 miles, and that's roughly the distance around the Indianapolis Motor Speedway. And if you're looking for last year's winner, well, it just happens to be George Hincapie, and I wonder if he can make it 2 in a row.
Well, George Hincapie will be fourth from the end to go today. The last man will be the winner 2 years ago, Iban Mayo. Well, with us on Cyclism Sundays this week is Craig Hummer. Let's see what he's got to say.
This prologue is perhaps as picturesque as it gets, but you can bet once the race gets underway, all eyes will be on the road. The course itself, for all intents and purposes, is 2 straightaways and is dead flat, so the only real drama will come from the 180-degree turn at the halfway point. Whoever handles this turnaround the best will undoubtedly set themselves up the most for the win. Now, last year's Tour de France Stage 1 winner, American David Zabriskie of Team CSC, is here, as is his compatriot, George Hincapie of the Discovery Channel team. Now, Hincapie won the prologue at last year's Dauphiné, but is coming off an early season injury. But you can bet he'd like nothing more than to prove to the peloton that he is back in form. With a race distance of just under 2.5 miles, it is going to be all out from the start, and the winner will probably be decided not by seconds, but by milliseconds.
Well, thanks very much, Craig. Well, the situation overall at the moment, as we look at the departure there of Thomas Dekker, Sebastian Lang has done 4:42.75, and that has just got the better of Joost Postuma with a 4:43. And just almost on the same time is Stein de Volder and Vladimir Gusev there in 3rd and 4th, the 2 boys from the Discovery Channel team. But we're expecting big things here, Paul, of Thomas Dekker.
Well, Thomas Dekker hasn't really raced since the early part of the season. You can see him wearing the red, white and blue. That's an indication he's the national time trial champion of Holland. And of course, for the Dutch, they really do believe this man is going to be the next star. This year he started off very well by winning Tirreno Adriatico. It's a tall order, though, Phil, to ask somebody to go out after a big gap from the sport and really hurt yourself over 4 kilometres.
Well, he's the national time trial champion of the Netherlands. This is Stuart O'Grady. It's good to see Stuart back in action. He lost the best of the classic season with quite a serious injury and a big pile-up. Now he's working his way back into good condition, hopes to break into the Tour team, of course. First Australian to wear the yellow jersey and almost win the green jersey a few years ago.
Stuart O'Grady looking very good there. Another man, as you say, coming back from injury. I think happy to change teams during the winter season and really enjoying this special preparation that Team CSC took part in.
So, as we watch Stuart O'Grady, Dekker is on course, and still the best man on the finishing line is Sebastian Lang with that 4:42.75. All right, well, it's still early here at the Dauphiné Libéré, and all of the big names, of course, still to take the start in the time trial, so stay with us. Well, welcome back to the time trial prologue of the Dauphiné Libéré. Cedric Vasseur finishing here, not a very great time there, 39th, 10 seconds off the pace. Still top man in the house is Sebastian Lang of Gerolsteiner with a 4:42 as we go back out on course with the man that may upset the podium positions.
I tell you what, he looks as if he's going extremely fast indeed, Thomas Dekker, at the halfway point of the course. This is the only corner in the course here.
Ooh.
And I tell you what, the aerodynamic bike there has made it very difficult for him to get round there at speed. But this man has gone out extremely fast. As you say, the time to beat is 4:42. It's a very violent effort for a lot of these riders who are now taking a return to competition after some time out.
Well, Dekker here isn't yet 22 years of age and now has switched to the finishing line. This is the arrival of Stuart O'Grady, and this could be a good time just on the line at 4:41.9. He'd be delighted.
He'll be delighted with that, 0.85 of a second faster than anybody else, Stuart O'Grady. Let's just have a look at that finish one more time. As O'Grady comes up to the line, he was looking at the time of Sebastian Lang to beat, 4:42.75, and he's just got inside of that. Well, Thomas Dekker now is looking rather good. There's confirmation, 4:41 to Stuart O'Grady. Sebastian Lang almost a second in arrears.
So there is the overall situation. Let me remind you, though, that tonight it's the premiere of the OLN Original Series IPT King of the Hill 8-ball shootout. Hall of Famers and hustlers hope to rack up $1 million. It's the richest payday in the history of the sport. The IPT King of the Hills 8-ball shootout tonight, 7 p.m. Eastern Time, of course, only on OLN.
Well, this is Benoit Voronard. Well, he's looking to try and beat the time of Stuart O'Grady. He's not going to do that. That's a brand new time of Stuart O'Grady's, 4:41. Voronard coming in a little bit off the mark there with a time of just outside of 4 minutes and 50 seconds, and that's 25 for him.
All right, well, as we await the arrival of Dekker here, he's on his way home. The new time to beat, that of Stuart O'Grady. Sebastian Lang sits in second, and Joost Postuma is third. We'll take a break. Well, welcome back to our coverage. We're with the Prologue time trial here at the Dauphiné Libéré. Well, Craig Hummer's having a busy day out there at the start, and he's now talking with George Hincapie.
George, back in April in Paris-Roubaix, 1 minute you're the favorite, the next minute you find yourself in the ditch with broken bones. I think most importantly, how have you healed since that race?
Yeah, that was a day I definitely want to forget. I had to deal with a lot of pain for about a month, but I feel much better now, and I'm hoping it didn't take away too much from this next month.
Speaking of the next month, and more specifically today, last year I think you were a bit of a surprise winner in the Prologue. You got to wear the yellow for a few days. What do you go into this year's race expecting?
Well, I trained really hard the last 3 weeks, and same like last year, I didn't know how I would react to the training because it was like a big 6-week break without races, which is exactly what I'm dealing with right now. So I don't really know how I'll do. I know that I felt really good in the last week, and I think I'll be right up there.
The questions obviously are inevitable, but since Lance's departure, how has this team's changed, and more specifically on race day, is the mood any different?
The mood has still been good. We've had some good successes this year so far. And obviously, we missed Lance. I personally missed training with Lance. This is the period of the year where I would train with him the most, so I missed that a lot, and we're going to miss him at the Tour. But we have a great bunch of guys here, and we're really excited about the next 2 races.
And I know you're focused on today. Good luck.
Thanks. Thank you.
Thanks very much, Craig. Well, George, as always, is affable self, but never gives much away.
Well, he doesn't, but you know, I have to think, Phil, after that very nasty accident he had in Paris-Roubaix, he was in the best form of his life on that day. He will have come back from that accident a lot stronger physically, but also mentally.
Well, the beauty around Lake Annecy here, and there's a massive crowd here to watch the prologue of the Dauphiné Libéré, the 58th year of this event, and this now is Eric Dekker's racing towards the line.
Well, Thomas Dekker.
Sorry, yes.
There are so many Dekkers. There's 3 Dekkers in this race. Hans Dekker, Eric Dekker, and of course this man here, Thomas Dekker. It looks like a good ride, but he's going to have to do something special to beat Stuart O'Grady's 4:41. I don't think he's going to do that. In fact, he's gone outside of that mark of Stuart O'Grady. But this man is a man who will be dangerous in the 43-kilometre time trial in a couple of days' time.
I think that wasn't long enough today, the prologue for Dekker. He's a little bit longer than that, I think. But as we look at Oscar Pereiro, this was the man you may recall in our coverage of the Tour de France last year. tried to eat and descend mountains at the same time, and he found he couldn't do it. He went off the side of the road. Well, he's getting ready for this year's Tour de France. A new team for him this year, the Case d'Appan, which is the Spanish setup with Alejandro Valverde. Valverde is here as well. He'll be going near the end of the order, and this is a good marker for him, I think.
Well, he did in fact get himself a stage victory in the Tour de France after being beaten to the top of one of the big mountain stages by George Hincapie. He bounced back the next day and won the stage into Pau. There's confirmation of Stuart O'Grady's time, 4:41, and that's a second faster than Sebastian Lang and 2 seconds faster than Joost Postuma, but still a lot of big names to come, Phil. Floyd Landis, Levi Leipheimer and George Hincapie all starting in the last 4 riders.
Well, I have to say that Stuart O'Grady's got himself into some form there, because he really wasn't a counter at all. Now he's come up with a time trial like that. Hasn't won a race this year, of course, because he broke his collarbone and his ribs very badly in the Tirreno Adriatico at the start of the year. Lost all hope, and he was really pinning a lot of hope on having a great classic season. That's gone through the wall. Well, let's hope he's now putting himself in with a likely first yellow jersey in the Prologue here in the Dauphiné.
Well, it was very difficult for Stuart O'Grady crashing out in Tirreno Adriatico. He had based his whole early past season on the one-day classics. As we look down the long road there to Mancebo coming up to the line, I don't expect a great ride by him because he's much better suited to the big mountain passes, but it isn't actually too bad a ride. He's looking at Stuart O'Grady's 4:41 there to beat, but Mancebo, as I see, you look at the style of this man. It's not a great style, but I tell you what, when it goes to going up mountains, he goes up them pretty fast.
Well, last year Mancebo 4th in the Tour, 4th in the Tour of Spain as well, comes up 23rd in the Prologue. He won't be worried about that. He shuts himself just on, when it's rounded up later, 9 seconds off the best time of Stuart O'Grady. There's a time for a trip around the lake for the people on the little cruise boat down there. This is a beautiful lake here. It's completely within France, but we're not very far away from the Swiss borders. Now this looks as though we've got Thor Hushovd coming round here, and this is the champion of Norway, the big man who's also the last year's green jersey winner in the Tour de France. First time a Norwegian had ever won it, and bet your life he'll cross swords again with possibly Stuart O'Grady, but certainly with Robert McEwen.
He will certainly challenge over the first couple of stages, but like a lot of the sprinters in this race this year, he's going to have a very hard time, because what's on the menu for this year's Dauphiné Libéré is nothing but mountains after the first 2 stages, where the race is a little bit undulating, but there are some massive passes down towards the end. Climbs like the Col d'Izoard and of course over the Col du Galibier right down towards the end. But for Thor Hushovd, he's a man who could create a surprise here. It's an explosive ride is going to win the opening Prologue time trial here, because it's only 4.1 kilometers.
So as we wait for the arrival now of Thor Hushovd, we'll take a quick break, and when we come back, the next big name we should be seeing will be that of Jaroslav Popovic. He, of course, could be the team leader in the upcoming Tour de France for the Discovery Channel team. We'll be back in a moment. All right, well, next week we're at the finishing line of the Dauphiné Libéré, and this is the last chance for top US contenders George Hincapie, Levi Leipheimer and Floyd Landis to get in fighting shape before the upcoming Tour de France. And another top race gets underway too. It'll be day 2 of the prestigious Tour de Suisse, and that really is the last race before the Tour de France. That Cyclism Sundays on OLN starts next Sunday at 5. Oscar Pereira arriving here now, and a 4:46 for him, only 8th place, and that is a 4:19 actually confirmed. Well, Paul, it's not... back to the start house. This looks like we've got Jaroslav Popovic now on the start house. Now this will be a good indicator here. Popovic could be looking to win this race by the time we get down to the finish next Sunday. Remember, we've crossed some huge mountains in the Dauphiné this year, including almost replicating stage 16 of the Tour de France to La Toussière.
I tell you what, he's come out of the start gate pretty fast there, Phil. This man is obviously looking to do something special. The whole of the team have already posted pretty good times on Discovery Channel, and I would be interested to see what sort of a time Jaroslav Popovic does for the 4.1 kilometers here. After all, he rode exceptionally well last year in the Dauphiné Libéré. Now inside the barriers, Thor Hushovd looking very strong indeed.
Well, he's not going to be best time, but he's going to run Stuart O'Grady reasonably close here as he races up towards the line. It's a very good ride by the Norwegian champion, and he comes in 8th place, 3.25 seconds off the time of Stuart O'Grady. That's a very good ride for him. First couple of days on the road are for the sprinters in the Dauphiné before we start climbing the mountains. And so they're looking for an early shot at the race lead. But this man is thinking long term.
Well, he's thinking long term. He dominated the final stage of the Dauphiné last year in a very dramatic move by Team Discovery Channel. They saw that they weren't going to win the race overall, so they sent Jaroslav Popovic and George Hincapie out on a very good breakaway. At the end of the day, they crossed the line in first and second place.
Well, he's riding very close to those barriers. It's a very easy course to remember. You go down one side, make the turn and come back up the other side of the road. This road lies just around the edge of the lake here in Annecy and has been the scene of many finishes of the big bike races in the past, including the Tour de France.
Certainly is a magnificent backdrop. The lake is beautiful here. We've seen a couple of shots of it from the air. It's filled during the spring months by the waters from the glaciers in the mountains around here. It really is quite clear. It's a great place to come. You can ski in the winter time, you can windsurf in the summertime. But for a lot of these bike riders here this afternoon, you can see Jaroslav Popovic here is doing a great performance. He came out of the starter gate like a cat on fire. I think he wants to set himself up for maybe what might be a battle of supremacy with Team Discovery Channel, a battle between George Hincapie and, of course, Jaroslav Popovic.
Well, it's a nice problem to have, I think. Situation at the moment, O'Grady has finished 4:41. Lang is in second place at the second, but what will Jaroslav Popovic do? Well, we'll find out after the break. Welcome back to our coverage today on Cyclism Sundays of the Dauphiné Libéré. Well, we've learned all about many of the top Americans in this race. There are plenty of them, I must say. One we haven't spoken to yet is Chris Horner, who's having a very good season. Here's Craig talking to him now.
Chris, speaking with your director sportif, Alan Piper, yesterday, he told me he is absolutely ecstatic that you are now on this team because you bring a wild card element to what this team can do. How do you think your talents best fit into your new team?
Well, I don't know. That's a strange question. I mean, in general, I think I do a little bit of everything, so I think that's what helps out. I mean, tactically, I can get the team organized and stuff like that for the sprinters on the flat stages and do the lead out good because that's what we do all in the States all the time, so I have some practice at that. And I'm certainly comfortable with helping the sprinters out and helping Cadel out like in Romandy and stuff like that, too. So I think I have a pretty wide range of ability. Climb okay too, so.
Speaking of the States, you know, you've certainly made the most of getting back to Europe, and a lot like Bobby Julich, you've seemed to improve, you know, with age. What do you credit that to?
For me, I don't know if it's so much of improvement. I think, I certainly think I was capable of doing these results when I was younger. I just was never happy being over here, and now I'm with the team that I'm happy with, and they're treat me very well and giving me my program and all that stuff, which has been a big help for me. But I definitely don't think I'm a little bit faster, sure, but not so much. I mean, it looks like a lot more faster now than it was when I was younger, but I'm just happier off the bike.
Last year, you showed incredible flashes of brilliance. Of course, looking back to last year's Tour de France, you almost came away with that stage win on stage 13. Looking ahead towards this year, and most specifically the Dauphiné here, what do you hope to come out of this with your preparation for the Tour?
Well, mainly I want to come out of this to be able to continue the training, getting better and better for the form to get better for the Tour. That's the first objective. Hopefully it's good enough to run competitive here, though, is what I'm hoping for. If it's not, though, then I'll make sure that, well, I'll do my best anyways to come out of here with the form just progressing, going in the up direction instead of getting wrecked.
What have you heard about this Prologue? It's got a nice hairpin turn at the top. Has anybody come back and told you what to expect?
No, not really, but it doesn't look like it's this course isn't much of to expect. I mean, it's 2K out flat, 2K back, one hard turn in it, and crosswind all the way out, and then looks like you'll have a tailwind just for that turn.
All right, well, good luck today.
Thanks.
I must say that win in the Tour of Romandy, Paul, the way he held off that chasing group was a fantastic win for Horner.
It was a great performance, and I tell you what, Chris Horner, I think, is really actually enjoying the change to Dauphiné Lotto through this winter transfer season.
Well, we're now looking down here on Popovic as he heads up towards the finish. He's made the turn back to the finish. This is Moncoutier, former stage winner in the Tour de France. He's one of the few Frenchmen who flies the flag these days in that race for them. As he races up to the line, he's not going to worry about this. He's drifted right out, just about gets in the top 100, and the top 100 spanned by just over 19 seconds now.
Well, Popovic now is looking to ride into the long barriered section of the course when he knows now he'll be inside the last few thousand meters, and he's trying to set up some outside points, I would think, for George Hincapie, who starts 4 riders from the end. Hincapie coming out of the starting gate at 11 minutes past 5 o'clock here local time, as Jaroslav Popovic now comes inside the final kite there, indicating 1,000 meters left to go. A little bit further down you can see Andrei Koshekin, and he's riding for the new team, but you see there are no signs at all on that jersey.
Well, he finished 3rd in this race last year in the Prologue, and he's going to go slightly worse this time. He's only 6th at the moment, behind what I'm seeing as a tremendous performance by the Australian Stuart O'Grady. He comes from Adelaide. They're going to be cheering him for that ride. Well, back into the start house, Paul. Looks like Mercado, is it? No, yes, it is Mercado.
Yeah, Juan Miguel Mercado riding for the Agritubel team from France. Swap across for him over the winter exchange season. He's gone out of the gate fairly fast as well. We're getting right up into the big names now. In a few moments' time, we'll see riders like Filippo Pozzato coming out. We'll see Dave Zabriskie. He starts at 5 o'clock local time, right at the top of the hour, just going past on the other side of this very strange out and back course was Jaroslav Popovic, and he now is into the barriered section, looking at the time of Stuart O'Grady to beat.
Now this is going to be an interesting time by Jaroslav Popovic, because the Grady's time is a 4:41.90. As he comes up towards the line, he's going to be outside of that. He gave us the impression he was in fact going a lot quicker, but this is going to be a high finish for him as he comes in to be a top 20 just for the moment. A 4:48, 18th place, 6 seconds off the time, but I wonder what George Hincapie will make of that, Paul.
Well, George Hincapie is a specialist at this kind of effort, maybe a little bit short for Hincapie. We must remember Hincapie won the Prologue last year. As you can see, the top 5 has not changed that with that performance, but the time that Hincapie posted last year, Phil, was over a 7.5 kilometre Prologue. This is a much more aggressive opening.
Yeah, that's absolutely true, and let's face it, this is a much harder course, I think, than last year. All right, but it's time for us to take a break. When we come back, Paul Sherwen will have more on the career of this man, Levi Leipheimer, as he gets ready to ride the time trial. See you in a moment. Welcome back to France. The big tune-up this week is the Dauphiné Libéré, as we prepare now, of course, for July's Tour de France. And one man who expects to excel in the Tour de France is the American Levi Leipheimer. Let's not forget, he was the 2nd highest placed American in the Tour de France last year with a fine 6th position. Paul Sherwen now has more on America's big hope.
At 32 years of age, Butte, Montana native Levi Leipheimer is now in the prime of his cycling career. The team leader of Gerolsteiner has 3 top 10 Tour de France finishes in the last 4 years, making him the big favourite to keep the Tour title on US soil. Levi's big breakthrough came in 2001 when he was playing a support role in the US postal squad for Roberto Jerez at the Vuelta a España. He went on to finish 3rd place overall, becoming the first American to ever finish on the podium of Spain's Grand Tour. He was then recruited to become the team leader of the Dutch outfit Rabobank, where he found mixed success. Finishing in 8th place overall in 2002, his hopes of improving the next season were smashed on the very first stage as he went down in a massive pile-up and was forced to abandon with hip injuries. In 2004, he rode a solid tour with a 9th place finish overall, but he didn't find the support within the team structure to fully excel. For 2005, Leipheimer signed on with the German-based Gerolsteiner squad and slotted into place very easily, and that year he had his best season to date. After a 2nd place finish in the Tour of Georgia and a 3rd place finish in the Dauphiné Libéré, Levi had an outstanding Tour de France, and if it hadn't been for a momentary lapse in concentration, he would have finished in 5th place overall. Instead, he settled for 6th, but took that disappointment and used it to motivate himself for the Tour of Germany, where he won the overall and beat none other than Jan Ullrich to a stage victory. This season, Levi started out strong with the Prologue win at the Tour of California, but since then he's kept a low profile. Traditionally, when Leipheimer has shown good form at the Dauphiné, he's gone on to do well at the Tour de France. So this week's performance should be a big indication of just where Leipheimer is.
Well, thanks, Paul. I must say, if Levi Leipheimer has a great Dauphiné Libéré, and I think it's very important for him that he does, then he will go to the Tour de France full of motivation and, most importantly, full of confidence. Well, there is a beautiful view of the lake here around Annecy, and there are some people not watching the Dauphiné Libere. You see, they're enjoying life out on the water. Meanwhile, life is not so good here. This is Juan Miguel Mercado as we switch to the finish here now for Ryder Hesdal, the Canadian coming in, and it's a good ride by him. He's a good time trialling rider. 10th place at the moment, 3.63 off the lead.
A very good mountain bike rider as well. Well, that was a good performance by him, but in the starting gate, the most popular man in France, I'd have to say, if you're talking about professional bike riding, little Tommy Vaucler, the man who wore the yellow jersey in the Tour de France for 10 days, only to have it stripped off his back by one Lance Armstrong.
Yes, well, he built his reputation on that magical 10 days of the Tour de France a couple of years ago, but he's only won 3 races since, I think it is, but even so, he's a pretty popular guy in France as he sets off on his straight out half 2 kilometre ride and 2 kilometre back. The trees in the boulevard here interfering a little bit with the pictures. We can't do much about that, but enjoy the race with us, because remember, this is the opening day of a week of racing now on the Dauphiné Libéré, and there's some huge mountains to come midweek. There's the situation in the finishing house. We think it won't be the final order. Kashikin, who was 3rd last year, slotted in only 6th. Grabsch was 2nd at one stage, he's now down to 8th.
But they're not massive time gaps so far. We're only looking at a matter of seconds separating the top men at the overall classification. Out on course, Thomas Vaucler in a couple of minutes' time. Pippo Pozzato, the winner of Milan-San Remo in the early part of this season, will climb into the starting gate, and he will be followed then a minute later by Dave Zabriskie.
Well, as we look at Thomas Vaucler, he reminds us, of course, of Lance Armstrong, and let's remember the Tour de France is nearly up on us, a race which for 7 years Armstrong ruled here in France. Now the battle for his throne is about to begin. Who will be the strongest, the fastest, and indeed the next king of cycling? The Cyclism Tour de France 2006. It begins July 1, only on OLN.
Thomas Vaucler getting out of the saddle there, looking nice and aggressive, trying to find a comfortable zone for him to ride into. He is almost halfway down this course. The course is 2 kilometers out, a very nasty hairpin bend at the end, and then 2 kilometers flat. Juan Miguel Mercado coming into the finishing line, and as you can see, one of the climbers not performing well over this 5-minute effort.
Just inside the top 100, 83rd for him, as meanwhile back in the start house, Filippo Pozzato has made his start. What he does, we'll tell you when we come back. Well, welcome back to our coverage today of the Prologue time trial here in the Dauphiné Libéré. Now, we've spoken about George Hincapie and his situation with the upcoming Tour de France, but what about the other 2 big Americans, Floyd Landis and Levi Leipheimer? Well, here's Craig Hummer to tell us more.
Well, what a difference a year makes. Of course, the excitement last year centered around American Lance Armstrong because the Dauphiné was his second to last professional race ever in Europe. Now this year, it's a much different story. The fans seem to be behind the Kazakh Alexander Vinokourov. He is ready and poised with his new team, Astana Worth, to send a statement leading up to the Tour. 2 Americans who also look to do well here at the Dauphiné are Floyd Landis and Levi Leipheimer. The people surrounding Landis tell us that he's looking to do better in the latter stages of the Dauphiné, but look for Levi to come out and try for the win today.
Well, thanks, Craig. Well, the boys, I think they're coming off a little bit of a break now, so they've got to get themselves into shape, and there's nothing better than a week like this one.
Well, it's a tough week, I would say, to get yourself into shape. It's going to be very hard towards the end with some of the biggest mountains that the Alps have got to throw at bike riders, but certainly already we've got a good indication.
Well, we're still with Pozzato here as he makes his long, straight 2 kilometre ride to the turn. A little bit of a switch now as we move around. Thomas Vaucler here, and just about now, as David Zabriskie should be in the start house. We should get a glimpse of him. Remember, we're always in the control of our French directors, and he might well want to stay with Thomas Vaucler right now. In fact, Zabriskie is underway.
Well, Zabriskie should be out on course. I think maybe this course a little bit too short for the man who's reputedly the most aerodynamic bike rider in the whole of the professional peloton, but it will be interesting to see how he performs. He's ridden fairly well so far this season, and I think seems to see us building him up once again, Phil, for a good ride in the Tour de France.
1 kilometre to go. A little bit of out of the saddle work now for Thomas Vogler, the Boy Telecom.
Well, he's out of the saddle, trying to keep the pace nice and high. Vincenzo Nibali coming up here for Team Liquigas. He's not going to beat the time of Stuart O'Grady, but it's a fairly respectable time for him. He should slot into the top 15. There he is in 13th place with 4:46.
That's a good ride for Nibali. So he now looks to me, this could well be Zabriskie's legs here. No, it's back with Pozzato.
Well, same colour back wheel, red, black and white. Yeah. And Filippo Pozzato started the season off superbly this year, a 6th place in the Het Volk, and then came out working for the team, got himself the win in Milan-San Remo, much to the delight of his teammate Tom Bonen, who makes his comeback to competition at the Tour of Belgium. But of course, I think fine-tuning it once we get into the Swiss Alps, where we'll be next week.
Yes, Tour Switzerland as well as the Dauphiné Libere in store for you next week on Cyclism Sunday. Bonen will be riding there. We're looking across the Alps here, which are all around us here at Annecy. Even though they'll have a couple of days for the sprinters, boy, this is a tough route. The Galibier, Col de Galibier, the Col d'Izoard, and the finish on top of the Ventoux. Well, here comes the arrival of Thomas Vogler. I don't think it's going to be any to write home about. He's a bit of a light rider to turn in a good time trial as he races up towards the line. Grivko, champion of Russia, slipping away too there as we see Vogler come over. 63rd at the moment. Well, Zabriskie's on course, and now that we've finished with the French rider, we might pick him up for you as we look out here across Lake Annecy.
Well, this is Dave Zabriskie. He's at the turn already. He's covered 2 kilometres, swinging across round this hairpin bend as he got round the corner nice and safely. Yes, it's taken him about 2.5 minutes to get to this point. It's a lot faster on the way back, though. Zabriskie out of the saddle, looking very strong indeed, I'd have to say, accelerating up to maximum speed. We're looking here at around about a 50 kilometre an hour individual time trial.
Judging by his time on the corner there, it looked like 2:09 on that clock. He's made that turn in, and if he has, then he's right on time here to win this. Well, not to win it yet, let's not preempt anything, but certainly to come home with the best time. Zabriskie, this is his sort of a course here. It's not the time to remember what happened to him in the team time trial in last year's Tour de France when he fell in sight of the finish, wearing the maillot jaune as leader of the Tour. But this time he could well be looking for another one to start off this. Oscar Sevilla denying all involvement with Dr. Fuentes in Spain and the drug controversy there. And he signed an affidavit to say that much to the team T-Mobile. So he is riding and is free to fly. So the situation at the moment, it's still Stuart O'Grady in with the best time. It could be being threatened. We won't know till the arrival of Zabriskie. So we'll take a break. Welcome back to the time trial. This is now the arrival of Filippo Pozzato, and it's a good ride, not a great one, but he's up amongst the leaderboard here as he races into a top 25, no, top 30, there we are, 4:49.
Just scraping inside the top 30. The next man to arrive in about 40 seconds, though, should be David Zabriskie. He had a very good time at the half distance. We reckon unofficially a time of 2 minutes and 9 seconds, but it's the return which is the most important. If you don't get your effort judged to perfection, you can blow up in the last 1 kilometre of this race. Zabriskie looks very strong indeed. Johan Brunel has said that this man has the most aerodynamic position in the whole of the sport, and Phil is already inside the barriers.
This could be a great time. He won 2 races last year. They were both races alone against the watch. And now what can he turn out this time? There's the time to beat. It's going to be close, but it's going to be a new race leader here as he comes up. What a good ride this has been. A 4:35.86, a 6-second beating of Stuart O'Grady. Now that really has thrown down the gauntlet.
That has thrown down the gauntlet, a 6-second beating of Stuart O'Grady. That, I think, Phil, is going to be a very difficult time to beat. We've got some big names still out on the course. We've got Valverde to start. We've got Hincapie, Leipheimer, and, of course, Floyd Landis. But Dave Zabriskie is a specialist at this kind of effort, a specialist at the individual time trial. I have to say, as we look at that 4:35, 6 seconds faster than Stuart O'Grady, I actually thought the course was just a little bit too short for Dave Zabriskie, but he wanted to prove me wrong.
4:35, 6 seconds beating there, so that's a terrific ride. So, well, we saw this on the prologue of the Tour de France last year. He survived to pull on the yellow jersey, but there are still some big names to come, not least of all Valverde and also Christophe Moreau, a good prologue time trialist, and Alexander Vinokourov, Hincapie, Leipheimer, Landis, and the last man to go, Mayo.
Well, into the starting gate now. You can just get a chance to see moving in there the leader of the World Cup. This is Alejandro Valverde, wearing the white jersey of leadership. He's led that for an awful long time now. He could be the big star of the future. Interestingly enough, Miguel Indurain said that if this man wants to win the Tour de France, what he's going to have to do is improve his time trialing ability. I'll tell you one thing though, the man who wears number 81 here can climb and he can sprint. So once he learns to time trial pretty fast, he could well be the next contender for the overall win at the Tour de France.
The man in white, Valverde, wearing the all-white strip here as leader of the Pro Tour, makes his start. He is a good time trialist. It's probably the weakest of his three disciplines. He's a very good sprinter, and of course we know he's a pretty good climber because he beat Lance Armstrong to the top of Courchevel. So he is now underway and heading down the course. We're switching back up to the man who has been awarded victory in last year's Tour of Spain, Denis Menchov, after the disqualification for taking drugs of Roberto Heras. And he's coming home. A good ride, pretty standard ride for Menchov, and currently in 16th place. So he is in there and now waiting to see if Zabriskie can survive the passage of time as we jump around the course. This will be Christophe Moreau. Let's remind ourselves, though, the quest that comes to an end soon. OLN is the only place to catch games 1 and 2 of the 2006 Stanley Cup final. Will Edmonton return to glory, or will Carolina raise the cup for the very first time? Oilers versus Hurricanes tomorrow, 8 Eastern. We are now looking at the legs here of Christophe Moreau, a former winner of this event, by the way, back in 2001.
Well, he's looking there at the Flamme Rouge, the red kite just around the corner, 1,000 meters for him to go, but I really don't believe that this man, Christophe Moreau, is going to knock Dave Zabriskie off the top of the leaderboard. It's going to have to be somebody very special like a George Hincapie, Leipheimer or Floyd Landis who are going to do that. Zabriskie, though, is the specialist at this kind of effort as we flick back to the finishing line here for the arrival of Oscar Sevilla. Not a great ride by Oscar Sevilla, but he's a climber, not an individual prologue specialist.
17 seconds off the pace there for Oscar Sevilla, but you know that's a superb time by Zabriskie. But we know that Floyd Landis, Leipheimer, George Hincapie, who won this race last year, can all deliver. This could be, in fact, Paul, a big American showdown on the podium tonight.
It certainly could, because those guys are already in form. They're looking for victory, and they will be spurred on by the fact that Dave Zabriskie has posted a very fast time indeed. Team Discovery Channel have also got a lot of riders stacked up there in the top 15, and those times will be something that George Hincapie will certainly look at. It'll be interesting for us to see how Hincapie performs, because he's coming back from that very dramatic crash he had a little while ago in the Paris-Roubaix. But this isn't actually too bad a ride by Christophe Moreau as he comes up to the finish line. He's gone outside of Zabriskie, outside of the time of Stuart O'Grady. Not a bad ride, though. Top 10 for him.
Yes, his tongue was a bit too far down there, judging that he wasn't feeling too good. Just off the pace, he won't be too unhappy with that, I don't think. Man who won the Prologue time trial, the Tour de France in Dunkirk a few years ago now. Back out to the course, back out to Alejandro Valverde. Is he going to do something this week that might establish himself as a podium finisher in Paris in the upcoming Tour de France? Because one, I think, will see him as a potential favourite alongside with Ivan Basso and, of course, the American riders. He's heading now towards the finish, and I must say, he is looking pretty good at the moment. All right, well, it's time for a quick break. The time trial, of course, will go on, and the three big Americans are still to take to the start line. And I'm talking about George Hincapie of Team Discovery, Levi Leipheimer of Gerolsteiner, and Phonax Floyd Landis. All to start next. We'll take a break. Welcome back as we look out across the beauty of France here around Lake Annecy, and today it's the Prologue time trial in the Dauphiné Libere. Well, we're up behind Alejandro Valverde still, but remember, just a minute ahead of him is Chris Horner. We haven't seen him. Well, there he is, Paul, coming home. And another good ride by Chris.
Good ride by Chris Horner. It's going to be a top 30 finish for him as he stops the clock there, well, just outside the top 30, losing himself around about 15 seconds. But for Horner also, a little bit of a comeback for competition. Horner much more comfortable on the slopes of the big mountain passes. But Valverde, Phil, is not too far behind Horner. This could be a good time.
Well, Chris Horner will look forward to the mountains. I think he's shown us this year he's nothing to fear with a great ride in the Tour of Romandy. And that was in May, of course, a month ago already. Boy, this year is flying away now as we head up towards the start of the Tour de France, just over 3 weeks away. Alejandro Valverde wants to put the finishing touches now to his preparation for the Tour. It'll be interesting to see if he'll be a threat in the prologue of the Tour de France. Meanwhile, on the other side of the road, Alexander Vinokourov has just gone. We're looking at Valverde now arrive at the finish. He's right up amongst it here as he's chasing the second place time, and he might just lose to O'Grady but he's going to cross the line. Sixth place, 4:43, but you know, 1 second and a few tenths is worth 5 positions at the top of the leaderboard right now.
That'll make him very happy. This is George Hincapie, though, getting himself into the starting gate, counting down 2, 1, go. Hincapie, this is a return to competition for the man who we thought was really going to win Paris-Roubaix this year, but a dramatic crash took all hopes away from him.
Well, it's a while since we've seen a great crowd like this at the prologue of the Dauphiné. They've chosen a good start this year. And Hincapie, a good time to make your comeback after that terrible crash on the cobblestone between Paris and Roubaix. Hincapie had a wonderful tour here last year. He was so strong alongside Lance Armstrong. He won the top and the tail stages and went on, as we know now, to his best ever Tour de France, where he even gathered himself a stage win in the Pyrenees. Now, is he going to find that sort of form during this week?
It's hard to come back to that sort of form after a long time out of competition, but he knows how to do it. This is Alexander Vinokourov down there for the New Wurth team. He now is starting to fine-tune his preparation to the Tour de France. A lot of people think this man could create the surprise this year. We're talking about Ivan Basso, we're talking about Jan Ullrich, but you cannot discount Alexander Vinokourov. He's been on the podium before, and he's the kind of rider who knows how to get himself right on form for something like the Tour de France. He said this year he's not missed the competition at all. He's enjoyed training, enjoyed getting himself onto form, and he will be maybe up against this man who may well have turned his mentality around from being a helper to Lance Armstrong to actually being a leader or a co-leader of Team Discovery Channel.
Well, in a few days' time, George Hincapie will be 33 years of age, and that'll be his age he'll go into the Tour de France as he settles nice in. Now, he is chasing Vinokourov en route at the moment. They'll cross down the bottom end, and then behind Hincapie will come the first of the last 3 men to go. Levi Leipheimer will follow, then Floyd Landis, and the last man, Iban Mayo. And they've chosen Iban Mayo to go last because he was the winner of this race 2 years ago, and Landeluz, who won last year, isn't here.
It'll be interesting to see how Iban Mayo performs now. There is Floyd Landis. So obviously Levi Leipheimer has started. Floyd Landis will be the next man to go out on course, and as he rolls down the ramp, I wonder if we'll get a chance to see his rather strange but effective profiled position.
Well, he has had such a tremendous season already that Floyd Landis can't get any better than this now, but it's anxious to prove to everybody now. He's had his little down period after his victories in the Tour de Georgia and of course the Paris-Nice, and before that at the start of the season the Tour of California. Now the rest period's behind him. Now is the big build and hopefully a real challenge for a podium position in the Tour de France, and it all starts right now. This is Sylvain Chavanel, the time trial champion of France, heading up towards the line. Another good ride, but it'll probably put him well outside the top 10, and it is too. Thomas Dekker there, Paul, only sitting in 20th place now. Horner there, 37th as they slip away.
57th place there for Sylvain Chavanel, a man who is the specialist at the individual time trial, but I have to say that's over a much longer distance. George Hincapie is out on course. 2 stage wins at the Tour of California this year to start his season off perfectly, but sadly having a very difficult crash in Paris-Roubaix.
It looks rather like a praying mantis there, Floyd Landis, rather than a professional racing cyclist, so he's sitting up on that tri-bar position. But there is a stipulation of length now as well, so he can't get any further forward. Remember though that Leipheimer beat both Landis and Hincapie at the start of the year in the time trials. Here comes Vinokourov.
Not a bad ride for Alexander Vinokourov, and is not going to challenge Dave Zabriskie or even Stuart O'Grady at all, but he'll be happy with this. For him too, it's also return to competition. He's looking at a top 10 finish here, so that's not bad at all there for Alexander Vinokourov. Loses himself just inside of 10 seconds.
Now let's do our first sighting, I think, of Levi Leipheimer here now, and he looks as though he's heading back from the turn here, and he's looking very, very smooth. Just the shoulders working away in unison with those big legs.
Levi Leipheimer returning to competition as well. A lot of these riders, you know, are now getting themselves right up to form for the Tour de France, which is just about a month away, or 3 weeks away, I should say, as Levi Leipheimer is now looking to see whether he too can post a new best time. It could very well be a big day for American cycling here this afternoon as Hincapie is into the straights. Look at this.
Well, this is the arrival of George Hincapie. The time is good, but it's a desperate sprint here, George. You're going to have to close it down quickly. It has slipped by, but look where George sits in. George is in second place, so the United States now hold first and second, and there are still 2 more Americans to finish. We'll see all of that when we come back after the break. Welcome back. It's the closing stages of the Prologue time trial today in the Dauphiné Libéré, and it's looking like an American day out. Dave Zabriskie has the #1 position in the finish. George Hincapie finished moments ago with #2. Now what can Floyd Landis and Levi Leipheimer do? The last man on the road, by the way, is Spain's Iban Mayo.
Well, looking here at Levi Leipheimer, he looks very comfortable. He's locked solid on that machine, hands right in the middle of the handlebars to make himself cut through the air as quickly as possible. He's inside the barriers. He knows the time to beat is that of Dave Zabriskie, 4 minutes and 35 seconds. He will look at the clock above the finishing line, wondering whether or not he can do that, and he's not going to do it this afternoon, but he's going to be close.
Well, this might be due to his lack of racing this last couple of weeks. You know, Leipheimer slipping rather badly away here, Paul.
He's had a problem. In fact, if you look at his handlebars were twisted there. He must have pulled on them a little bit too hard, and that is probably the reason why he didn't perform to his maximum.
Good spot that. We'll hope that will show us those pictures again, but it does look as though that bike wasn't properly tightened up before the off. He'll be pretty annoyed about that because he slipped a long way away. These are the legs here of Iban Mayo, the winner of this race 2 years ago. As he closes down the course, we're more anxious now, of course, to see the arrival of Floyd Landis. Landis is a minute ahead up the road, and Landis could still make this an American 1-2-3.
Well, at the top of the leaderboard, Zabriskie, the fastest man, 4:35. Second, the man making a comeback, George Hincapie. And look at this time. I don't think he's going to beat Zabriskie at all, but what he's looking for is trying to get himself into the top 3 or 4 positions. He may well just go outside of that, but as you can see, stops the clock, only 9th place for Landis.
And nearly 8 seconds down, but nonetheless, nothing at all in the loss of time there to Dave Zabriskie of 8 seconds. Landis should outclimb Zabriskie. Remember, they're on rival teams. But it's all over now. Dave Zabriskie has thrown the gauntlet down because he has done what he did a year ago in the Tour de France, and that is win the opening Prologue time trial. And remember, Paul, it's not only his first win of the year, but it is also his first ever appearance here in this race.
Well, the first time he's come here, and the first time I think he's enjoyed victory at the Dauphiné Libéré, it gives a good indication that he's going to be a member of the Tour de France squad for Team CSC later in the year. And I think after a little bit of a layoff, that's an indication that he's preparing right on time for the Tour de France.
Well, we're giving the accolades to Zabriskie because Iban Mayo is not in the same time trialing category as Dave Zabriskie. I'm sure of that, but he's certainly going to try and stay up amongst the leaderboard here. There's the time, and you see he's already slipping away, way away from the finishing line here. This is a man who might fly up Mont Ventoux, though, or even the Col de Glibier or the Col d'Izoard in the next few days, but he's way out now, just inside the top 100, hits the line 89th, 20 seconds slower than the man who's won today, David Zabriskie. That really has been a superb day out for all of the Americans who are looking now to get their form in shape for the Tour de France. The beauty of this area, but out there in the deep mountains, that's where it's all going to be decided. There's the result. Dave Zabriskie, 4 minutes 35. Hincapie second. O'Grady a brilliant third. And completing the top 5, Joost Postuma of the Netherlands, 8 seconds slower. Well, I have to say, looking further down, Stein de Volder, 6th place. He's on the team Discovery, and Gusev, 8th place. They made a good start. They've been split only by Valverde there.
Well, I'm very surprised about that performance by Dave Zabriskie because I was expecting to see him shine when they came to the 43-kilometre individual time trial in a couple of days' time, but certainly that's a great way to start.
And there's another way at looking at the result here. 2 United States flags on the top today. That has been a superb result. And, well, Zabriskie, he's not the surprise he was, Paul, when he was almost a year ago winning the Prologue of the Tour de France. But it is his first win of the year. He's had a couple of reasonable rides, especially in the Coppi Bartoli. but it certainly proved that this man has learnt a lot in the 12 months. Let's have another look at him here as he makes that top turn. And there was the secret, 2 minutes 9 seconds on the board. Nobody had been round in that sort of a time.
Nobody was round that fast, and I tell you what, he got himself around that corner nicely as well. A fairly difficult technical corner at the top end of the course after 2 kilometres, and it didn't do anything at all to slow down Dave Zabriskie. 2:09 at half distance, finishing off with 4:35, just goes to show this man can ride exceptionally fast.
But you know, just over 4,000 metres, it is a sprint up and down, and that sort of top-end speed required to win this race. For those riders who've had a few weeks off the bike, well, not off the bike, but out of competition, preparing for the Tour de France, well, it has caught them out, there's no doubt about that. But it didn't catch this man out all the way to the line. Stuart O'Grady was being robbed by a man who went far, far quicker than Stuart could ever do. All smiles then for David Zabriskie as he looks out at the crowd here. A little wry smile, I think, Paul, because this is a big result for him in his first ride here.
It certainly is an impressive result too, over 4.1 kilometres. That was almost 54 kilometres an hour, his performance there in that individual prologue, and he will ride out tomorrow with the yellow jersey of leadership on his shoulders.
Just when the French thought there was an end to the American winners in this event, because remember, Lance Armstrong's won it and George Hincapie won the prologue last year, and Zabriskie has carried on, this time pipping Hincapie to the big one. Well, let's have a look now at our days in moment. I don't think there's any doubt as to what it was, Paul.
Well, no, I'd have to say it was the moment that Dave Zabriskie went round the turn at half distance after 2 kilometres covered. When we saw the clock indicating 2:09, it was an indication that was the fastest time at half distance so far. And the fact that Zabriskie got himself safely around that corner, was back up to 54 kilometres an hour again, proved to me that that was the days in moment.
And of course, if you win the prologue, then you automatically are the fastest man on time, so you get the first leader's yellow jersey, just as he did 11 months ago in the Tour de France. Zabriskie in the maillot jaune of the Dauphiné Libéré.
Building himself up quite a reputation as a prologue rider now, Dave Zabriskie, and he will ride out onto the roads of the Dauphiné tomorrow as the leader. He should have a chance to keep hold of it for the first couple of days and then maybe even consolidate, because on the third day of racing there's a 43-kilometre individual time trial, and that is certainly most likely to suit him a lot more than anybody else.
Yes, well, I wonder if he's contemplating that fact, Paul, as he just sits there. He's a wry character. You never know when he's joking or when he speaks to you. But as we look out across the mountains, they hold the secrets to who will win this year's Dauphiné Libéré for sure. Now, Craig Hummer is down on the finishing line, and with him is David Zabriskie.
Well, David, it seems that no matter what time of year and no matter what the race, you prove time and time again you have the speed. I know you're a pretty laid-back guy, but deep down, how important is it for you to come out here and win and show you are the fastest?
Yeah, it's important for me to do well in any timed event because I really look forward to them. I really like them, and I haven't been in competition for about a month since Georgia, and I really trained hard, and so I'm really pleased with the win today.
This is another banner year and certainly is shaping up for CSC again. What do you think it is about Bjarne Riis and the attitude he brings to your team that has you guys always ready to do well?
It's just it's Bjarne. I hadn't felt very connected to the team because I'd been gone for so long, and I talked to him when I got back to Europe a couple days ago, and just hearing his voice kind of instills like a work ethic inside of you, and I was just like, yeah, I'm back, and it's time to go, and that's what I did.
Speaking of being back, certainly this is a preparatory race for a number of you for the Tour de France. It's well documented how you came out firing at last year's Tour. What do you hope to gain in this week's racing to get ready for July?
Yeah, I just need to get the race in my legs for the speed and the distance and just to get back into the rhythm of things. So that's all I'm looking for here.
All right, well, you started off well. Congrats.
Thank you.
Thanks, Craig and Dave. Well, you know, for Team CSC, this great successful team season, Paul, continues for them because today in Luxembourg, not that far away, not a million miles from Annecy, Christian van der Velde has won the Tour of Luxembourg.
Yeah, an impressive move. He got into a very decisive breakaway yesterday, and because of that, he took the overall lead. And I tell you what, strangely enough, that's only the second win of his career, but it's just a point that he has created a renaissance in his career too.
It just shows that the Americans can't do a thing wrong at the moment. 1-2 here in the Dauphiné, and a win for Christian van der Velde, also an American, and his dad John will be pretty pleased over in Luxembourg. Well, again, a marvellous opening, especially if you're American, to the Dauphiné Libere. That wraps it up for this week, but don't forget, we'll be back with you next Sunday for the final stage of the Dauphiné, and it's the last chance for the top US contenders, Hincapie, Leipheimer, Landers, Horner, all to get in fighting shape before the Tour de France. And then it's the start, also next Sunday for us, it'll be day 2 of the Tour of Switzerland. And that really is the last race before the Tour de France. That's a double header for you. Cyclism Sundays next Sunday at 5 here on OLM. All right, don't forget to log on to our website for a complete schedule of our coverage, and that's olntv.com. Congratulations once again to Dave Zabriskie, and in Luxembourg, a special congratulations to Christian van der Velde. He won the Tour of Luxembourg today. Up next, it's IPT King of the Hill 8-ball shootout. For Paul Sherwen and myself, Phil Liggett, we'll see you next Sunday. Goodbye.